What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tomatolito Boxing Show. And holy crap, let's talk about Vergil Ortiz and Serhii Bohachuk. It's been a couple days since the fight's taken place now, and I had to go watch it back just because of all the controversy surrounding the fight, the back and forth that ensued, regarding the claims of Vergil Ortiz actually having lost this fight, and if Serhii Bohachuk deserved to have kept this title. I didn't want to jump on just fresh off of the fight and just recap it because it is very deceiving, and there's a lot that went into this fight. What a fight it was! Golden Boy billed it as a potential fight of the year, and this is a sure shot candidate for fight of the year. If you missed it, go watch it. You deserve to go watch that fight. What a hell of a fight! It reminded me a lot of those old school fights, especially somewhat of a throwback Castillo Corrales, where they stood right in front of each other and just wailed on one another, unleashing power, and just to see whose heart was gonna outlast whose. They tested each other's chin multiple times, and there's a lot to dive into here. So let's get to it. What are the claims? We know that Vergil Ortiz walked away. Now retrospect, right? We know that Vergil Ortiz got the decision win. And we know that Serhii Bohachuk relinquishes his title by way of decision. Serhii Bohachuk gets 2 knockdowns on paper against Vergil Ortiz. Vergil Ortiz, as per CompuBox, outperforms, outlands Serhii Bohachuk. So we've gotten a multitude of narratives. Tom Loeffler, of course, the promoter of Serhii Bohachuk, well, he makes the claim, as per utilizing CompuBox to back up his claim, that Serhii Bohachuk should have been the rightful winner. As we look at CompuBox, which could be deceiving, and I'll tell you why. You could make the case of Tom Loeffler as far as Serhii Bohachuk deserving to win. Again, if you go off of CompuBox and the way that he's looking at it. I'm going to bring up his this message because he responded to Oscar De La Hoya and Vergil Ortiz on X. And the claim is, we're going to get organized here. And sorry, we should have had this ahead of time, but I'll get it here. All right, here's the CompuBox. So Tom Loeffler claiming Serhii Bohachuk won 4 rounds out of the 12-round fight, according to CompuBox. And the 2 knockdowns. 2 knockdowns, of course, were counted as 10-8. And with 4 rounds, that would have given them an easy victory. The judges didn't score it that way, obviously. If you look at the final CompuBox numbers, it looks like Bohachuk won round 4. Round 1, of course, because of the 10-8 knockdown. So what happens in the first round, Vergil Ortiz was outperforming Bohachuk in that first round and outperformed Bohachuk to close the round. But he gets caught by Bohachuk with an overhand right, a right hand that came over the guard of Vergil Ortiz. As Vergil Ortiz was rounding about on the ropes, he found his back on the ropes, trying to get out of danger. And I think it was a combination of both, where he's trying to move out, loses his footing, and gets hit. It is ruled a slip by Harvey Dock, who gets him back into the fight quickly. And the rest of the round, Vergil Ortiz won. It was fairly early in the first round. Several rounds later, the judges end up reviewing this call. And by round 4, they end up acknowledging that it was indeed going to be ruled a knockdown rather than a slip, as was the decision of Harvey Dock. Harvey Dock treated it as a slip. The referee put him back into the fight, and Vergil Ortiz had received, apparently, the round by the judges. Vergil won round 2. Vergil won round 3. In round 4, they end up deeming that it was indeed a knockdown, which ended up changing the game, and the corners were aware about it. So the game plan starts changing now that you're behind on the scores. More urgency on behalf of Robert Garcia and Vergil Ortiz. Was it a knockdown? Yes, I'll give it a knockdown. Because he landed exactly as Vergil was in motion, and as he's moving, he loses his footing. And whether he loses his footing because he's slipping, he did get hit. And he got hit clean on the left side of his face, around his brow. So you give that knockdown to Serhii Bohachuk. This is all according to CompuBox, the numbers that I'm giving you as far as rounds. As far as CompuBox goes, Ortiz, based on numbers, CompuBox is just punches thrown, punches landed, and this is total. So combining both jabs, power punches, body. Vergil Ortiz, according to CompuBox, won round 1, round 2, round 3, round 5, round 8, 9, round 11, round 12. Serhii Bohachuk won rounds 4, 6, 7, 10, and that's it. So 4 rounds, and that's the argument that Tom Loeffler's making. According to CompuBox, he outlanded, and then this is, if you look at round 10, Serhii Bohachuk outlanded him. So with the higher percentage, he threw less than Vergil did. Bohachuk got 17 of 56 punches, so landed 17 of 56 on that round 10. Vergil landed 1 punch less, 16, and threw 65. So he landed at a 24.6%, Bohachuk 30.4. So higher percentage by the 1 punch because he threw 9 punches less. That's how close these rounds were as far as output. So he had those 4 rounds plus the knockdown that got acknowledged in round 8. Even though he had, on CompuBox, he lost that round. Bohachuk, they gave him a 10-8 round. Key. This is key. And then round 1, he lost that round on CompuBox, but he got that knockdown acknowledged and flipped over later on in the fight. So he had 2 knockdowns in 4 rounds. That's 6 rounds, with 2 of them being 10-8. Tom Loeffler making that the argument. Now, where is the flaw in this argument? Those of you that know boxing, that understand boxing scoring as best as we can, because a lot of times we don't understand what the hell these judges or some of these judges are looking at, or the decisions of some of the referees, which you know that we're big critics of here, and we jump all over that whenever we see something flawed, we call foul on it. And you guys know that from the history of this show. Where is the flaw in this thinking? Well, here it is. You got 3 judges that sit around the ring. That was something of a novice type call, or not novice, something of a novelty to all of us. The fact that that drop in the first round rule of the slip ended up getting overturned several rounds later into the fight. But it was okay. We moved on. It was early in the fight. We moved on. We knew it was going to affect the scoring, and it was in the back of your head. But the fight was still very, very competitive at that point, and no robbery. That's the one thing that we want to establish, that there was no robbery in this fight. It was that close, that tightly contested. And it was that tightly contested by way of output. Both of these guys showed up to fight. Both of these guys gave everything they had. This is not a Oshaki Conceição type decision, where it was a very defensive, strategic, not many punches thrown, and you're trying to figure out who got what, and the wrong guy ended up winning on that night, in my opinion. Conceição lifting the title off Foster. This was not that. Where's the flaw in Tom Loeffler's point? He's trying to make his point after the fact. Remember, 3 judges on different sides of the ring, respectively. And then you have the commentating crew on the 4th side with CompuBox and the bell judge and so forth. They don't have CompuBox available to them, at least they shouldn't, when they're judging these fights. They're going off of what they're seeing as it's happening live. There's no CompuBox that comes into play into these judges' decisions. So when we look at final CompuBox numbers, which is what Oscar De La Hoya posted to counter Tom Loeffler's argument, or vice versa, Oscar posted it to eliminate doubt. Tom Loeffler came back with saying, Bohachuk, according to this, you're proving my point. 4 rounds plus the 2 knockdowns, Bohachuk deserved to keep his title, according to CompuBox. Again, CompuBox is not available to the judges as the fight is happening. All this comes out after the fact. Now, if you look at the final CompuBox, which is what Oscar was going on and what everybody's going on, you look at the final punch stat report, and out of the total punches, Serhii Bohachuk landed 225 punches, landed at a 27% rate. 225 punches of the 832 punches that he threw, 32 of those 225 punches were body shots. Ortiz landed 265 of 747 punches. He landed at a 35.5% rate, and 101 of those 265 were body shots. So the percentage significantly higher for Vergil at a 35.5 in comparison to Bohachuk's 27%. Bohachuk threw 832 punches. Vergil did this much damage in about 80 punches less. 80 and change. 747 to 832. And he landed 265, 40 punches more than what Bohachuk got, which was 225. 101 of those 265 were body shots to the 32 that Bohachuk landed on Vergil's body. So if you look at the final punch stat report, the right guy won. Because otherwise, the number should have been favoring Bohachuk for you to say this was a robbery. Now, the knockdowns. The first knockdown gets overturned from a slip over to an actual knockdown on the scorecards according to the judges. Later on in the fight, around the 4th round is what I recall. Good. Give that knockdown to Bohachuk. It was a clean punch that he landed. But then the second knockdown happens. If you go back and watch this second knockdown, just prior to Vergil Ortiz slipping, yes, they're exchanging punches as this is happening in the center of the ring. Just prior, to Vergil Ortiz going forward in the center of the ring and holding himself up with his gloves, Serhii Bohachuk was near slipping, almost did the splits in the center of the ring as he's backing off that big sticker that's in the center of that big decal in the center of the ring. It's visible. It's visual. You could see on the replay. Go back and watch that. Round 8. Serhii Bohachuk nearly slips in the center on that very same spot where Vergil Ortiz ends up losing his footing. Sweat, extremely wet down that center. Serhii Bohachuk nearly loses his footing to where it almost looked like Vergil's punch ended up hurting Serhii Bohachuk, where he was losing his leg or his footwork because of the punch, and it wasn't the case. Bohachuk is visibly near slipping, nearly falls, and gathers himself very well. His legs held him up very well. And Vergil steps near that same spot and loses his balance and goes forward, holds himself up with the gloves, pops right back up, and starts waving his hands. No, that's not a knockdown. I slipped. And the ref looks to the side and acknowledges the knockdown and begins the count. And this is the second knockdown. I will honor the first knockdown. I believe that second one was a legit slip. The first one was really questionable. This one was fairly obvious. But they gave him a second knockdown. So that was slightly a little bit of the controversy that I ended up seeing. You guys go back and watch that and post on the comments and let me know if that's what you see as well. I don't think that should have been ruled a knockdown. The second one, neither here nor there, because on paper, it did get acknowledged as a knockdown. So now we go to the scorecards. And the way the scorecards read, where Max DeLuca issued a tie, a draw, 113-113, with the comments at the bottom of the scorecard reading, after review, Ortiz down in round 1 and round 8. David Sutherland scored it for Ortiz, 114-112, acknowledging both of the knockdown rounds, 1 and 8, as 10-8 rounds for Serhii Bohachuk. No comments in the comments section. Steve Weisfeld issues a similar score as Sutherland, 114-112, also acknowledging the 10-8 round in both 1 and 8, with a comment at the bottom of his scorecard reading, Ortiz won by majority decision. Steve Weisfeld. This is when they comprise the 3 cards. So Weisfeld, let's see how accurate it was according to CompuBox. Weisfeld gives Bohachuk round 1, round 4, round 7 and 8, and that's it. He gave him 4 rounds, those including the 2 knockdown rounds, 10-8 rounds. Sutherland gave Bohachuk round 1, round 4, round 8, round 9. Both rounds of those 4 rounds that he got to include the knockdown rounds. Max DeLuca gave round 1, round 4, round 6, round 7, round 8 to Bohachuk, giving them 5 rounds. Of those 5, 2 of those included the knockdowns. And his scorecard led to a draw because he had that 5th round in there. That's how close this was. And the other 2, a 114-112, any of those rounds would have swung the way of Bohachuk. They would have seen it exactly how Max DeLuca saw it, a draw, and it would have been a majority draw. The knockdowns did play a factor in the scorecards. The knockdown did keep this tight down the stretch. And the rightful winner won. The rightful winner was awarded. In my opinion, I agree with all assessments based on CompuBox backing this claim, and the way that the scores read, and the fact that the knockdown was overturned, and the second one, even though I don't agree with it, and it should have been ruled a slip in my opinion, did get considered into the scorecards, and the fight still came out to the scores the way it did. With the final championship rounds, Weisfeld giving from round 9 to round 12, the last 4 rounds, to Ortiz. Sutherland and DeLuca giving the championship rounds to Ortiz, 10, 11, and 12. That was the difference right there. DeLuca considered the knockdowns. No knowledge of CompuBox, but what he saw, considering the knockdowns, was a tightly contested showdown matchup that led him to a draw. And immediately when that card got read, because we knew it was that tight, everybody wanted a winner and that card got booed. And the other two were just one round off. One round that they ended up, whatever swing round it was, that ended up teetering on the way of Ortiz versus Bohachuk. 1, 2. If you go back and look at the 10-8 round, or 3 or 4, I don't know what point I'm on right now, but if you go back and look at that 8th round, where the knockdown, that round is scored 10-8 for Bohachuk solely because of the knockdown. The same knockdown that in my opinion, I'm saying it was a slip. Shouldn't have been a knockdown. Ortiz clearly won that round, and he had Bohachuk hurt in that round. Where if this judging was even more accurate, and these are judges that have been around for a long time since I was a kid, I recall these judges being in big major title fights and being around. If that round was scored properly, that should have been a 10-9 round or a 9-8 round. Because Ortiz, as evident as ever, go back and watch the entirety of the 8th round. Ortiz clearly won that round and had Bohachuk hurt in that round. On several occasions, at least a couple occasions that pop in mind. So that knockdown was the only thing that gave Bohachuk an automatic 10-8 round, even though he lost the entire round. If that would have been scored properly, it should have been a 9-8, and this would have been an additional point on behalf of Ortiz, based on the remainder of the scorecards. But there was some swing rounds that you could make an argument that Bohachuk should have gotten these rounds, kind of like the 6th round, which Sutherland gave to Ortiz. Weisfeld gave to Ortiz. DeLuca gave it to Bohachuk. And why I'm saying the 6 is because of CompuBox. We just read those. So, in my opinion, the rightful winner was awarded. Vergil Ortiz survives a tough, scary fight. This is the toughest competition that we've seen him in the ring against. Usually is just guns blazing for him and whoever his opponent is. Remember, Mean Machine went at him. Maurice Hooker took the fight to him. We've seen numerous fighters take the fight to Vergil Ortiz and eventually cave because of the body attack and the body onslaught of Vergil Ortiz. This guy stood his ground. They tested each other's chin, each other's spirit, each other's heart. Bohachuk's legs did not fail him, did not betray him, nor did his chin. And Vergil Ortiz, regardless of the knockdowns, in my opinion, he was visibly hurt on other occasions, and his body held up well, and he gathered himself well and got back into the fight, more so than those flash knockdowns. Congratulations to Vergil Ortiz, because this was a hell of a fight, and it should be nominated for Fight of the Year, and I would love to see a rematch of these two to run it back, hopefully before the calendar year ends, since people are clamoring to it. It was that good of a fight. Remember, Vergil Ortiz got this year running for boxing this calendar year. He was the first fight, the first event of the calendar year, big event of the calendar year was the first Saturday of this year. And it was Vergil Ortiz making his comeback. And that's when Golden Boy announced that they were setting up shop in Las Vegas and all this and all that. That's when Bill Haney got into it with Bernard Hopkins. And if you remember that, that was Vergil Ortiz making his big, long-awaited return to the boxing ring and kicking off the calendar year in what was a one-round knockout for him. One-round knockout victory, I should say. So his perfect record is blemished as far as knockouts go because he was coming into this with the 21-0 record and 21 knockouts. He now improves to 22-0 with 21 knockouts. But what a victory. What a great victory for him. I would love to see what you guys disagree with, but we just broke down, at least I did my best to break down both judges scoring and CompuBox and the arguments of people picking CompuBox to prove the case, and Tom Loeffler especially, but I've seen other people commenting on X utilizing CompuBox. But remember, fights are not scored that way. Yes, CompuBox is a great measure as to back up the claim of who had the more action, or when there's clear robberies that we're seeing something, we know we're witnessing something, and CompuBox goes and backs up your claim after the fact. You're like, I know what I'm watching. I know I'm not blind. I'm seeing this guy clearly outland, clearly outperform the other guy, and the judges still give the decision to the other guy. What did I miss? And CompuBox, again, supports the claim of the rightful winner having been awarded in this one. Not the most accurate system out there, but we do utilize it a lot, both as commentators, broadcasters, promoters, fighters, you name it. CompuStat and CompuBox have come into play numerous times as it relates to fan opinion. Nonetheless, an amazing fight. Bohachuk dropping to 24-2, 23 knockouts to his credit. And his first loss, of course, came at the hands of Brandon Adams back in March of 21. Other than that, the man is fairly flawless. And the 154-pound division is as intense as ever. Because a week prior, we saw that long 8-hour card, but a mega event that it was. And Riyadh season Turki Al-Ashik's arrival to the U.S. market, headlined by none other than Crawford, as he lifted the title from Madrimov by way of decision as well. Crawford made his debut, and now an interim champ in the 154-pound division, as did Vergil this past Saturday, making his debut in the super welterweight division, and also becoming an interim champ in his debut. Imagine Bohachuk and Crawford. Imagine Bohachuk and Madrimov. What test Bohachuk would have posed for Crawford? Because just in output alone, in volume alone, Bohachuk a lot more active than what Madrimov posed, the threat that Madrimov posed to Crawford. Madrimov very active by way of feinting and flinching and hesitating and constant hezzies, constant movement, constant footwork, and then landing his punches in between there. Very complicated style that Madrimov poses. Bohachuk, more of a fan-friendly type fighter, where he just swings for the punches but is very accurate with his punching. Breaking the guard, punching over the guard. Not a lot of body work there, but very good at finding his range and finding his target. Imagine Bohachuk Madrimov in the future. So with the likes of Tim Tszyu, who's about to make his return, and it looks right now as if Tim Tszyu going to be fighting the IBF champ, the undefeated Bakram Murtasaliev, who's 22-0 with 16 knockouts, Russian fighter. He ended up fighting for the vacant IBF title, the same title that got lifted from, or stripped from Jermell Charlo for inactivity. They ended up making it vacant. And the fight was disputed, or the title was disputed, between Bakram and Jack Kolke in April of this year. Murtasaliev knocked out Jack Kolke in the 11th round and crowning himself the IBF champ. As of now, it looks like Tim Tszyu is going to be returning to fight for that IBF title. Just initial reports that I'm seeing, it looks like Tim Tszyu is in preparations, getting back into camp, and will be preparing to fight Bakram for his IBF title. That's going to be a great fight. With Erickson Lubin trying to get himself into a fight, Jermell Charlo and Lubin going back and forth on social media, seeing if Lubin could get Charlo back in the ring so they could run it back. Remember, Charlo knocked him out early as he was making his route towards becoming undisputed. Brian Castaño, the last opponent at 154 for Charlo, he's announced that he's going to be making a comeback at some point, somewhere soon. And now with the arrival of Vergil Ortiz and Crawford muddying the waters at 154 and establishing themselves as top opposition within the division, you have Tim Tszyu, you have Bakram, who's the other champion at IBF, you have Madrimov and Bohachuk, who are legit contenders and former interim champs themselves. You have Fundora, who's the unified champ at the moment, supposed to be scheduled to fight Errol Spence. That fight ended up getting delayed, and we don't know when it's going to happen. It might happen in November, late October or November. If that's the October fight that everybody's hinting at between Fundora and Spence, that's going to be an amazing card as well, because you're going to have a lot of people coming back on that card. It may be a big PBC card to close out the year. Because remember, we've been hearing about Tank returning mid-October or November. That might be piled up in there. We heard Elijah Garcia. If you didn't, Elijah Garcia, who lost to Kyron Davis, middleweight fighter, you could check out the interview that I had with him on YouTube not that long ago. And he's claiming to be preparing for a potential October or November return. And then Jesus Mono Ramos, who's another live dog in this 154-pound division, he lost to Erickson Lubin, but came back and beat Johan Gonzalez. He's looking at returning around October time, maybe November. He's already starting the early stages of a camp and preparation, but hasn't started an official camp yet. And he's looming at, or at least looking forward to maybe an October, November return. That 154-pound division, and this is just the names that I've mentioned, competition is at an all-time best right now. What a great spot. It looks like not just the migration of the 147-pounders that have gone up to 154 in Spence, Crawford, Ortiz. Remember, Thurman was supposed to fight Tim Tszyu. He fell out because of injury. He's already on the back end of his career, but if he does, he's going to be a big name for anybody. If he does manage to return, he'll be a big name for anybody's resume. Thurman and Spence would be a better fight for me than Fundora Spence, because I don't know what Spence has left. I'm a big fan of Errol Spence, but I don't know what he has left. And I think Fundora, he might be biting on too much against Sebastian Fundora. And if he beats Sebastian Fundora, we're all going to be in shock. Because I don't know many that are giving him a chance against the Taurine Inferno. Especially after the performance that he's put on against Brian Mendoza in a losing effort and against Tim Tszyu, where he became unified at 154. What a great spot for the 154-pound division. And the rest of the card offered some good entertainment as well, with Sebastian Fondora's sister, who's a champion herself. She was the co-main event. She improves to 14-0. Having defeated Daniela Asenjo and retaining her IBF flyweight title. Cecilia Bráquez was also part of this card. First time that she ever fought in Las Vegas. Retains her WBC interim title by defeating Marisela Cornejo, who was a last-minute stand-in. And Bráquez improves to 38-2 with one draw, and with an interim strap around her waist now. Then the young guns for Golden Boy, who are getting built up and are still making their way up, similar to what Top Rank offers, like Xander Sayas, another 154 young dog, young shark that's competing in that very same division, who's just around the line, coming off that victory against Patrick Teixeira. He's another young gun that could be thrown in the mix fairly soon with all of these guys that we just mentioned at 154. But my point was, Top Rank has a lot of young guns. Alan Garcia, Kid Kansas, Emiliano Vargas, Keyshawn Davis, Xander Sayas, all these guys that continue to get built up on their cards. Golden Boy's doing the same thing. They had Eric Priest in action, and he ended up being successful, remains perfect in his young career. 14-0 now. Kenneth Sims made his debut. He's a 140-pounder. Made his debut with Golden Boy. He's 21-2. Defeating Jonathan Romero on the undercard. Charles Conwell, another super welterweight. He's still undefeated. He was keeping tabs on that main event, trying to get himself a showdown with Vergil Ortiz or Bohachuk, whoever would have won. He's a perfect 20-0 now, defeating Kieri Gray. Knocked him out in the second with a body shot. Charles Conwell, another one of those tough dogs at 154. And Joel Iriarte, a young man who was an amazing standout prospect in the amateur ranks. 17, I believe, if I'm getting it correct, 17 national titles as an amateur. I got to meet him as he fought on the undercard of Cepeda Cabrera. I got the interview on YouTube, so you could get to know him if you don't know who I'm talking about. He was in the fourth fight of his young career. He's on the fast track. Golden Boys put him on a fast track, and they're keeping him as active as possible. He just fought early July, and here he is in early August, and he's already got just 1 month apart. It was July 6th, I believe, when I got to talk to him. August 10th now, he's active again, and stops his opponent. The only two stoppages, by the way, the only two stoppages of the night were Charles Conwell and Joel Iriarte. Conwell wins by body shot. Joel Iriarte wins by onslaught as he had his opponent against the ropes. Miguel Ortiz, the ref, gets in the way and just stops the fight. And that was in the opening round. Joel Iriarte is a tall welterweight, rangy, very efficient fighter with good punching power. And he's coming into his own. He's developing very well. And the fact that he's on Golden Boy's fast track, don't be surprised if we see him again very soon. Maybe he'll take part in that undercard with Munguia. Maybe just down the line if Golden Boy has another card scheduled coming up. Nothing that I've seen yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if he lands another 2 fights or so this calendar year. So, very entertaining card overall. A lot of prospects in the card, but the ones that I really wanted to see was obviously the people that are lining themselves up as contenders and title challengers. Charles Conwell is right there with the perfect 20-0 now. He's going to be great competition for anybody at 154. But the main event, as it should have been, stole the show. Not the co-main, not the lead-up, not the build-up or the supporting cast, but the main event, as it should. They were billing this as a fight of the year, and sure enough, 43 knockouts between the two fighters, and everybody's asking for a rematch. Or most, I should say. Because it was that type of fight. Congrats to Serhii Bohachuk, and congrats to Vergil Ortiz. What an amazing fight, and congrats to us, the fans, because we're the ones that end up winning in the end. So I leave you guys with that. Thank you guys again for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the fight. If you didn't, and you heard this episode before, I hope I didn't spoil it for you. But if I did, now you got some stuff to look out for and to analyze. And I hope you do right by yourself and go watch the fight if you haven't watched it. You'll enjoy it. It was a hell of a fight. I'll leave you guys with this. Thank you guys again for the continued support, for the downloads, for spreading the word, and helping the show to continue to grow. We're doing our part. We're chipping away, and hope I get access to another decent event or big event, so I could bring you guys more coverage and more interviews live from these arenas, wherever it may be. And the only way it's happening, it's because of you guys. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't, please consider doing so. If you don't follow me on Instagram, please consider doing so. You guys know that whenever I put a post that corresponds, you know that the episode's going to be up. And those of you that follow me on Spotify and Apple or whatever your favorite platform is, you know how to find me already. Thank you guys for the continued support, the love, and nothing but love going from my end right back to you. And have yourselves a great night and a safe night, which is the most important thing. I'll check you guys out on the next episode. Take care.